Canadian fintech company Nuvei is growing quickly. That has fueled some bullish views on Wall Street, as well as some skeptics, such as the short seller Spruce Point, which published a new report today. It's been a busy week for Nuvei. Hollywood actor, producer, and entrepreneur Ryan Reynolds just invested in the payments player, and we are pleased to welcome Ryan Reynolds to Bloomberg Markets, along with Nuvei CEO Philip Fayer. Thank you both so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. You've got a lot on the go. Maybe you can walk us through how this deal came together for you.
Well, if you're asking for the origin story, I mean, Canada's a pretty small country. So I was about 3 phone calls away for Phil to get in touch with me. And, it was a lot of conversations, to be honest, over a couple of years. And I continue to not be an expert in fintech, but I do know stories. And I think I'm a pretty good read on people. And I loved everything that Phil had shared with me. Over and over again, he gave me a lot of details and a new appreciation and understanding for payments. That's for sure.
No doubt. And Philip, Ryan has proven to be a very savvy investor, but also a great brand representative for some of the companies he's worked with over these last few years. What's it like for you to be able to team up with somebody like Ryan Reynolds?
It's been fascinating, guys. I mean, his ability to take complex items and break them into simple, funny stories and bring humor around and connect our employees and change the narrative on something that is actually quite technical and boring and make it fun and humorous with humility has just been an exceptional part of, our journey. And we're really looking forward to working with Ryan and continue developing the Nuvei narrative.
Well, Ryan, let's stick with that story of kind of brand savvy. Immediately what comes to mind is the work you've done with the likes of Peloton, for example. We're in an era where banking, where fintech and payments in general are really hard for the average consumer outside of the world of Wall Street to understand. How do you plan to apply your brand savvy to a company that's in fintech?
Well, a couple of ways. I like the idea of promoting a Canadian company. And the idea of a Canadian tech company, I think, is pretty unusual. Not because Canada isn't amazing, but because the U.S. has, by and large, dominated so much of the tech conversation. And also, fintech is another zag. Really, I like unusual moves. I think Aviation Mint, Deadpool, Wrexham were all relatively out of the box moves for their time and moment. And fintech is a sector that I don't know. Obviously, I don't know too much about, but I was interested in learning. It's a sector that a lot of people have run away from, but payments are pretty ubiquitous. I mean, these payments are pretty critical, and that's something I like about that. There's a huge market there for it.
And Philip, let's expand that story. As you have Ryan Reynolds now in your court, how do you plan on really taking Nuvei to the next level, taking it global, and kind of crossing those geographical boundaries that Ryan just outlined?
If you look back from where we've come from, right, in 2017, around 40 million of EBITDA, to this year, knocking on the door of almost 500. It's been just an exceptional journey. Today, we have presence all around the world. We enable roughly 200 markets with a very comprehensive payment stack. We acquired Paya about a month ago that expands new use cases in B2B and integrated payments, which gives us a lot of runway, both in global e-commerce, B2B, and integrated payments. So we feel like we're still on the ground floor, even where we are right now. There's just so much more to do.
So, Ryan, just back to you. Since you've gotten involved in so many deals at this point, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur or as an investor to this point?
You can draw, I think, a pretty clear string between the experience I've had in show business and the experience I've had in a lot of these businesses. And I think that when you're storytelling and hacking culture with speed, constraint is your friend. And typically when you're talking about marketing and you're introducing something that's slightly unorthodox or something that is not as easily digested as, say, a movie to an audience, those are constraints, and those force you to think outside the box. And those are incredible creative exercises. And it's something that I've been really fortunate enough to play in a lot of different sandboxes, and it's something I'm super excited about with these guys. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in 35 years of storytelling and show business, is that you bet on good and smart people, and Phil and the team at Nuvei are exactly those virtues. So,
Thank you, Ryan.
Now, Now, Phil, just in full disclosure, we were mentioning there was a short seller, Spruce Point, which put out a report about Nuvei today. This company has made comments before about the business, but they keyed in on transparency and also talked about this deal. I think there was some curiosity around the financial terms of this deal. I want to play a clip from the founder of Spruce Point and get your reaction. We'll play that for you now.
We're a big fan of Ryan Reynolds. He's a great actor. And to his credit, he admits he's not a fintech expert, and he's there to tell a story, and he's telling a story. But our real question is, did he put his own money into the company, or was he gifted that through an equity issuance of restricted stock?
Philip, what would be your response to that?
Look, I mean, in this particular case, guys, you have promoters and detractors, and we respect both of their positions. We're really fortunate and really excited about our partnership with Ryan. We have not disclosed specifically the terms of that partnership, but we're really excited, not where the business is right now, but what we can do with the business again over the next 5 years, just like we have done over the past 5 years. So Nuvei had this blank canvas, a story that remained relatively unknown even at our current size, and we're really excited about taking that story and enhancing the brand awareness so that we can compete further and in greater depth in all the markets that we operate in.
Well, Philip, with that kind of lack of details around the actual deal itself, how closely do you plan on working with Ryan? Any kind of insight on your future collaboration?
Well, we're just starting the journey today. I will say over the last 2 years, roughly, working with Ryan and George and the Maximum Effort team, it's been unbelievable, right? How they take complex items and break it down. We're just starting the relationship. We put out some great content. We're getting some great feedback, both from sales potentials, current customers, employees, and we're again just starting that journey. So it will develop, and we're pretty excited about where we start off and where we kick off. But I think the best is still yet to come here.
And Ryan, let's talk about it from your side, from your point of view. We know that you are a growing entrepreneur. Do you see that part of your life taking over the acting piece?
No, I see them as more closely associated than I think most people would give them credit for. We basically work on very similar foundations. Everything we do at Maximum Effort, we work in show business, we work in sports, we work in a number of different industries that I would characterize as slightly unorthodox. But one of the things that or at least that I make sure that we do, is that Nuvei is in a certain way structured like aviation, gin, or mint, where if Nuvei wins, I win. And vice versa, and that is incentive enough. I think I really genuinely believe in having skin in the game is very important in emotional investment. I've talked about this before, but I'm not a financial investment expert. What I do think that Maximum Effort has a real understanding and handle on is emotional investment. And that's something that is really interesting and not easy to apply to fintech, and certainly not to Nuvei, but it's a challenge that we're super excited about. And Nuvei is already a massive multi-billion-dollar global company. So I think it's just had a little bit of trouble talking about itself. And it's probably due to some of its Canadian roots, maybe a little too humble for its own good.
I would love to get a little more color from you on that, Ryan, because in many ways you are this Canadian ambassador through Hollywood, but increasingly through business or a deal like this. What would be your message to Canadian entrepreneurs who do want to dream bigger and go global and do the kind of things that you're doing or what you're doing with Nuvei?
Yeah, I always look at I talk to a lot of CMOs and I talk to a lot of CEOs, and one of the things that comes up, one thing that comes up, I think more often than not is, people look at these long-term 8-month, 9-month strategies in terms of marketing and messaging, and overthinking things can sometimes be your biggest stumbling block. But I also look at people who are in similar positions to me, who have navigated some sort of weird waters and interesting waters. I think in a decent way, and there is no right answer with any of this stuff. If I'm going to give advice to entrepreneurs, I don't know exactly what that would be. Everyone sort of talks about there's a prescription and a roadmap to here. I'm very, very lucky to have an incredible team around me at Maximum Effort: George, Dewey, James, Tony, some of the smartest minds in marketing and some of the smartest minds in business. And I'm learning as well as I go. And I don't ever profess to be an expert in anything, but I love the storytelling component, and so much of that is applicable to marketing.
Well, Philip, Ryan mentioned roadmaps, and obviously a lot of what Ryan is doing, we see the box office, but we'll see these deals too. We saw what happened with Mint Mobile and the deal announcement on that recently. When you're partnering with somebody like Ryan, do you see a finish line? Maybe this business of Nuvei gets sold to somebody else, or to the earlier comment about dreaming big, is the goal to be acquiring other companies as you have in the past?
It's crazy to think about this, guys, but we're a 20-year-old startup. We still think we're on the ground floor. We feel like we've gotten to this incredible inflection point, and we're hungry. We're really hungry. We feel lots of opportunities. So it's too early to think about exit. But we love the tools that we have and the opportunities that are in front of us.
So, Ryan, let's continue that story with the deal flow. When we're talking about your other businesses, very successful with Mint Mobile, potentially successful with Nuvei as well. Let's talk about Wrexham here. Any thoughts about potentially taking it public if it does get promoted?
Taking the team public?
Correct.
That has never come up. It's just not something that we've even discussed. I mean, I know it sounds like a cliche, but Wrexham is genuinely one day at a time. I would say that it's of course, my family being the second. Wrexham feels like my third beating heart. I love every aspect of it, and I am having the time of my life. And it's something that I hope I'm involved with until I finally close my eyes to this mortal dumb show.
And look, I have to ask you another sports question, because a lot of people are curious as to whether, Ryan, you're going to be a NHL owner or part of an NHL ownership group in the foreseeable future. Well, I'm sure there are sensitivities around that. If you were an NHL owner, should we look to the playbook you've been using in professional sports? Like, what would be the first thing you would want to do?
I guess. I wasn't an expert in I'll call it soccer for our American audience, but I've adopted football, rightfully so. But I look at it as you have to go hand in hand, community and club. The thing that I think we did do well with Wrexham is make sure that there aren't a lot of we don't have a large moat around us of publicists and lawyers and other personnel. We are pretty accessible and are accountable to both the community and the club. And I think that, like anything, if you're going to grow the club, you have to, in tandem, grow that community. So that's always the sort of thing. And you also want to really make sure that you're making sure that people care about the town that club is in. I mean, our job with Wrexham has not just been the football club. I do not make decisions about who's on the field. I will never make decisions about who's on the field. Thank God, because we'd be in last place. But what I am careful about is making sure that people care about Wrexham all over the world. I don't care if you're in Dubai or Alabama. I want people to care about Wrexham, and I want people to care about that community. So that is certainly a page right out of the playbook, and that's something that I would do in almost any similar situation.
Ryan, I want to ask you another question about social media specifically, just given your success and your passion for storytelling as you line out. One of the issues that a lot of corporate America, and I want to say companies around the world, even news organizations are flowing, is which platform is right for that kind of storytelling. Twitter, of course, has become a center of that conversation. Your thoughts on using Twitter as that medium, or do you feel like the focus is elsewhere?
I don't know. I mean, I see they all have sort of different footprints. I mean, Twitter is now and has always been a piping hot dumpster fire of trash, and it can be a very difficult place, but it's also a place that there can also be incredible good. I mean, there's so many aspects of Twitter that can be so much fun and so interesting, I think, when handled right. And it's a great platform for messaging, I think. And then Instagram and TikTok and all these, they all have sort of a different vibe and flavor, if I guess. But I'm not an expert on that. I don't think of it through some sort of critical lens, like you might guess. I really don't. I was late to social media. I mean, so clearly I wasn't on the tip of the spear there.